Welcome to the Explainer. Today we are going to absolutely shatter that old ship it and forget it mentality in medical device software. If you think the hard work stops the second version 1.0 goes out the door, well, think again. Today we're focusing squarely on what happens next: release readiness, maintenance, problem resolution, and change control. These are the crucial steps that take over when your code finally meets the real world. Let's kick things off with a hard truth from our source material that completely challenges industry norms. You do not ship with zero known bugs. You ship with every known bug assessed. Seriously, nobody ships a complex medical device with zero known defects. If a team claims they did, it usually just means they kind of stopped looking. The actual requirement here isn't absolute perfection. It's radical honesty and deep, thorough analysis of what's left over. So what actually happens the second your software goes live? We're going to explore this continuous, critical loop of maintenance, problem resolution, and change control that actually keeps patients safe in the field. Because contrary to popular belief, the vast majority of a product's life cycle, and frankly, its risk, exists entirely post-market. Act 1, the gate of honesty. Crossing the release gate with our eyes wide open. A software release under IEC 62304 Clause 5.8 is basically a gate based on radical transparency. It's not just some paperwork you bolt on at the end of a sprint. Now, you might think an empty anomaly list is a massive win, right? Actually, scratch that. On a complex product, an empty bug list isn't a triumph at all. It's a huge red flag. The honest doctrine requires us to document every single known bug, evaluate its potential to cause a hazardous situation, apply mitigations, and clearly inform the user. Because an anomaly you hide is an anomaly nobody mitigated. And honesty also means total traceability. A release that you cannot perfectly reproduce 6 months down the line is a release you literally cannot investigate or defend. Well, it builds on my machine just doesn't cut it in medtech. You have to pin your toolchains, pin every exact version of software of unknown provenance, or SOUP, and archive the actual built artifact with a checksum. If you can't restore it later, your archive is just a belief, not a true safety control. Let's break down how this actually builds, because you can easily pass the software gate, but still fail the product and regulatory gates. Software release just means the code is done and verified. Product release means the whole shebang, including the instructions for use, is fully validated for the real world. And regulatory release? That means it's actually lawful to sell in a specific jurisdiction. 3 distinct gates, usually operated by entirely different teams. Moving into Act 2, planned software maintenance. Preparing for that shifting environment long before release. Maintenance isn't just reacting to a complaint, it's a highly controlled process. Clause 6 dictates that we establish the rules of engagement before the software ever touches a patient. Whether you're reacting to a bug or doing a proactive SOUP update, all of these are modifications: corrective, adaptive, perfective, and preventive. And here's the golden rule for all 4. Every single one of these modifications re-enters the development process. You don't get to skip verification just because a tweak is perfective or small. Take adaptive maintenance, for example. The environment around your software, things like iOS, Android, or web browsers, it moves without asking for your permission. But it is entirely predictable if you're paying attention to the environment, allowing you to fix things months before the user's operating system actually updates. If your medical app breaks on day 1 of a new smartphone OS release, that's a planning failure, not a technical surprise. Part of this maintenance planning is also knowing exactly when it ends. You've got to give users plenty of heads up for these dates, because leaving patients monitored by unsupported software is a severe hazard. If a library your software relies on stops receiving security updates in 9 months, well, your end-of-support date is driven by that safety reality, not by your commercial roadmap. Which brings us to Act 3, problem resolution and safety, and specifically the hidden danger of the cosmetic label. Clause 9, problem resolution, exists so that reports are deeply analyzed, not just treated like IT help desk tickets. Every single report requires a safety assessment. Why? Because the bugs that cause serious harm rarely look dangerous at first glance. A problem report requires formal investigation and containment. It's incredibly tempting to label a UI glitch as cosmetic and toss it into the backlog, right? But cosmetic is a judgment call. You must write down a proportionate safety assessment proving there is absolutely no sequence of events that could lead to a hazardous situation. To put this into perspective, let's look at the Cardio Connect case study. 47 minutes. That is how long a critical atrial fibrillation alert was delayed due to an unscaled peak load, proving that technical performance directly impacts patient safety. At first glance, a queuing delay sounds like a basic IT performance issue, but an undelivered alert has the exact same clinical effect as a missed detection. It leads directly to delayed treatment and potential serious harm. When investigating these reports, if you stop at the proximate cause, you'll just keep generating the exact same class of defect indefinitely. Shrugging and saying a developer made a mistake explains absolutely nothing. The real root cause questions are, why was this introduced in the first place? And why did our safety nets fail to catch it? We have to fix the system, not just treat the symptom. Finally, Act 4, change control and compliance, closing that continuous loop of development. Every single fix, patch, or hotfix ultimately ends up as a formal change request. And every change funnels through 3 hard steps to ensure we aren't breaking existing risk controls or bypassing our market authorizations. You need an impact analysis to set the scope, a risk review to check for new hazards, and a regulatory assessment to figure out if this change requires you to notify a regulatory body before it goes out. Impact analysis is absolutely crucial because the scope of your regression testing is entirely dictated by this assessment. If you skip these common blind spots, you will fundamentally undertest your device. People often forget that opening a simple data path might accidentally destroy a segregation boundary, instantly elevating a low-risk module to a high-safety class. Or they forget that updating code doesn't magically fix the legacy data already sitting in the database. And this brings us to the core tenet of this entire explainer. There is no VIP fast lane that gets to skip safety. Even a one-line code change re-enters Clause 5 development, proportionate to the change. The scope of that re-entry is determined by your impact analysis. A small scope is completely legitimate, but a zero scope? No way! This quote perfectly captures how we handle emergency hotfixes and critical cybersecurity vulnerabilities without breaking compliance. When a zero-day exploit drops in a library you use, the urgency is incredibly real, but your maintenance plan should already have an expedited route defined. You compress the timeline, sure, but you never, ever skip the impact analysis or the verification of the fix. Now, what about AI? For AI-enabled devices, a predetermined change control plan, or PCCP, allows for specific future changes without a brand new submission, but only if it's implemented exactly as prescribed. It's not a blank check to tweak your machine learning model on a whim. The condition here is strict exactness. If you deviate from the pre-authorized modification protocol in any way, you are right back to the standard change routing. And closing the loop means checking real-world performance, because a corrective and preventative action, or CAPA, without an effectiveness check, you're basically just crossing your fingers and blindly hoping it worked. You released the change. Awesome. Pat yourself on the back. But now, look at the field telemetry. Did the queue latency actually drop? Did the error rate stay flat? Did the process change you mandated actually prevent the mistake from happening again? I want to leave you all with this final critical thought. In medical device software, improvisation is just a second incident waiting to happen. True safety doesn't come from writing flawless code on the very first try. It comes from having a rigorous, transparent, and honest loop of maintenance, problem resolution, and change control. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and remember, true speed comes from preparation.